Welcome, guys, to the Joshin-Strike podcast. Today we've got Wixinho, my co-caster, and I got him on actually because one of the arcade CEOs were like, "Who's your co-caster?" Okay, so I want to introduce Wixinho to you guys so you know what he's all about. So, Wix, tell me a little bit about yourself, okay?
Well, yeah, as you could tell from the accent, I am not an Aussie. I'm English. Not from the United Kingdom, Josh. I'm English. I think that's very important. But yeah, that is me. I'm 27. I'm catching up with you. Catching up with you.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like how I got into casting.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, I think you have a pretty big role in it. If I'm honest,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's something that we've ever really sat down and spoke about before. So yeah, I started casting like probably a year or so before COVID really kicked in,
Mm-hmm.
and this may come across cringe or whatever, but I always used to like as a joke and as a meme. I
Mm-hmm.
used to like commentate on games when I'm watching with friends and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And their friends are like eventually sitting there like, you're not too bad at this. You should give it a shot.
Mm-hmm.
So I did it. I started casting like ESL advanced games,
Mm-hmm.
just out of a hobby. I think
Yeah.
most people really go through that path to start with. And of course, it's like you do it off your own back, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're not getting paid for it. You're doing it on your own channel. You're
Mm-hmm.
doing it, you can try and reach out to orgs and say, look, do you want me to cast your game for you? But, if you haven't got a show reel or anything,
Mm-hmm.
you're not, it's like near impossible to even get $5 out of it, right?
Yeah.
So at that point, you're kind of just doing it as a hobby. And, and for me, I did that. And if something came off it, great. If not, then I had fun anyway. It is what it
Mm-hmm.
is.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I started doing that. I actually started casting not exclusively, but I started prioritizing an org called Trident,
Mm-hmm.
who at the time were an org with a super heavy Russian roster.
Mm-hmm.
Um, a few of the players that were really playing in their first big team for the first ever time,
Mm-hmm.
guys like
Wasn't Clax one of them?
Klax was one of
Yeah.
them, Norvi was one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that really got them on the map.
Mm-hmm.
They're playing tier 1, if not tier 2 CS now consistently.
Mm-hmm.
And then they picked up Seized as well. So
Yeah.
even
And
though I wasn't really getting paid for it, it
did they
was a
pick
pretty
up
big
Guardian
gig
as
because
well? They picked up Guardian as well at one point, or am I getting that wrong?
yeah, but I think I was a bit gone by then. I'd already been casting with yourself and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But they did eventually pick up Guardian, yeah, because Tricky, who was their AWP at the time, who I thought was going to go very far, decided that he couldn't commit time to playing anymore. He didn't want to take the gamble, that a lot
Mm-hmm.
of up and coming
Yeah.
players take. You go unemployed, you commit the time to the game and hope it pays off.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the harsh reality for players nowadays. But yeah. So I was casting for those guys pretty much exclusively. I wasn't getting paid for it or anything. I was
Mm-hmm.
just doing it again out of our hobby. And they were obviously allowing me to cast on their channel, which
Mm-hmm.
brought in a sense for me where it was kind of like I scratch your back, you scratch mine. It's
Yeah.
like I'm casting on their official channels. They're advertising, me essentially.
Mm-hmm.
I got a bit of a following from that. Obviously, nothing major, but it was more than what I was getting on my own channel. So
Yeah.
yeah, that was really how it first got started, and those were the first few like steps in what has become my career, if that's what you got to call it.
Mm-hmm. What other stuff do you do like outside of casting in particular? Like, of course, you said you're not from the UK, so that means there's only one country you can be from, which is Southern Ireland. Uh,
Oh, okay. No, I work full time. Always
yep.
have worked full time. Obviously during COVID, no one was working, right? So
Mm-hmm.
when we were casting and doing stuff during COVID together, obviously I wasn't working. But since then, I've been literally full time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I moved to Malta 2 years ago. for a full-time job opportunity out here.
Mm-hmm.
I think with the whole, quite a lot of talent and players moving to Malta now.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I think a lot of people looked at that and assumed like I was really like shooting for the stars here, like moving to Malta for the sake of my casting career. It really wasn't like that.
Yep.
I'm not just saying that because it hasn't worked, by the way. But yeah, I got offered a job here.
Yep.
I got offered a job here, and you know the stars have kind of aligned. I guess it was like an opportunity for me. Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
the fact I was casting definitely played a factor. Not a big one, obviously, because it was a very big career opportunity for me outside of the internet, you know. But it certainly, you know, came into mind.
Yep.
Could it have potentially given me better opportunities? Maybe. Has it? No.
Yep.
But yeah, it's one of those.
Yep. So you basically moved to Malta for a full-time opportunity. I was gonna say, like, what sort of career are you into, or do you not want to disclose that?
I don't care. I don't
Yep.
really care because, yeah, I think people could probably put two and two together anyway. Even if I said no, I don't want to disclose it because
Yep.
one, I'm in Malta. It's a bit of a giveaway, but I work in the gambling industry.
Yep.
Which a lot of people go, whoa, that's.
Well,
Oh, you got bad morals and stuff.
I'm gonna say overall, like, you know, I don't know anything about Malta because Australia, we only know what's in the country and we don't know what's in Europe. But I guess,
Yeah,
yeah,
I guess. Yeah, and I think your gambling laws anyway in Australia are like kind of all over the place. You're pretty unregulated, but I'm not going to bore people with that.
they're actually absurdly strict. They are more stricter than any other country's guidelines. It's just the differences
Yeah,
is that is in Australia, in WA, you can't run slot machines. Period.
yeah. So for land-based stuff, like
Yep.
IRL stuff,
Mm-hmm.
you're kind of chilling. But when it comes to online,
Yeah,
like
nothing.
I'm not going to call out websites, right? But I'm not going to advertise for them. But you can gamble on a lot of websites in Australia and just not have any issues. So yeah, but yeah, I work in the gambling industry. I work mostly in the marketing side of things. When I first moved here, I actually worked for 40 different online casinos under one basically white label. So basically, if people don't know what a white label is, they essentially are like the easiest way to say it is like they're kind of like a resale, but they do all the dirty work and hard work for you, right? So let's just say you came to me and said you wanted to open up a casino. We would say, oh, well, we've already got one that no one owns and is not being used. You can rebrand it, you can call it whatever you want.
Yeah.
At the same time, you know, we can put on all the slot games for you because there's a lot of like there's a lot of back end stuff that the player doesn't see.
Yeah.
That is like really extensive. Like it's not just, oh, here's your games and you know you can have players. It really doesn't work like that, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it taught me a lot, I guess. I didn't know a lot about it before, and it is a very like fickle business. I think with fickle, not necessarily in like a backstabbing way. It's just more of like everyone is trying so hard to get players, right? Because that's where the money is.
Yeah, of course.
Like if you have 1 million players on your site, and you know, let's say they all deposit $10 a month. Obviously, that's unlikely. You're going to get a few high rollers in there. But let's just say, hypothetically, they all deposit like $10 a month. It's no good. Like, your company's not going to be able to run off that, you know, because you got to factor in like all the slot providers and all the game providers that make the slots also get a portion of anything, any profits that you make off the games.
Yeah.
And of course, they need to pay staff and the CEO and so on, right?
And the regulation.
So everyone is pushing
the regulation and stuff like that as well. It's like really strict where you have to like I did some research into this as well, where you have to like talk to the governments and be like, yeah, here's all our customers, like they have their IDs and whatnot.
Yeah. So if you get basically audited on the spot, you kind of have to present anything to cover your backside, and if you hesitate, they will just slap you with a fine. I'm not going to go into too much detail who I work for and stuff.
Let's not do that. We should go
No,
back to the
yeah,
casting part.
yeah. Let's do that. Let's do that. No problem.
Okay, so the casting part in particular, so you started casting with Trident, and let's just talk about like
Yep.
moving it forward, like the opportunities afterwards that you got opened up to from it.
Yeah, I guess. So obviously I was casting for Trident. I think I then after casting for multiple months for multiple people,
Mhm.
I actually think I reached out to you directly and said like, look, do you want to be interested in just doing some duo stuff,
Mhm.
Just see how it goes. Maybe it'll be good, maybe it'll be worse. We'll
Mhm.
just see what happens, I guess. Do you want to give it a shot? And you said yes.
Mhm.
And then we did that, didn't we, for a bit?
Yep.
Mostly like the Australian stuff,
Yep.
because that was like what you were doing. And if we were awake and if we had the energy to do an EU
Mhm.
late at night for you, we would have done it.
Yep.
But yeah, I think yeah, that's basically how it all got kick-started, right? And then eventually, we got the email that I think every single up-and-coming caster wants to get is
Mhm.
an email from ESL or a Discord message or whatever saying, "Look, do you want to do this?" And of course, yeah, let's go.
I'm trying to think. I think that
Um,
wasn't our first cast an Asian game or was it an AU game. I'm trying to think. Which seed it was.
I believe it was AU, and I believe it was a DreamHack Open, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh no, it might have been Asia then.
Yeah. Because I'm trying to think. It
It's
was.
really bad that I don't remember
Yeah.
because we
Neither do
had
I.
two so close together. We had two really close together. We had a DreamHack Open
Mhm.
and an IEM,
Yeah.
and they were spaced within like 3 weeks, if I remember correctly.
Mhm.
And I think one of them
One of them was
was
definitely the
the
Asia one.
longest Dust 2, right? With the Asian
Yes.
team.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah,
Ah.
so we have a little bit of history on Go.
Yeah, because I'm trying to think what it was, because I know Checkmate was one of them, because I remember casting like all the guys on
Yeah,
the Mongolian scene
that's
in
correct.
particularly. But yeah, I guess overall, like, you cast with me, we got an ESL spot in the end, we did some AU qualies and some Asia qualies as well. And we also got onto some major close qualies as well, I think, at some point when ESL
Yeah,
hosted
we
it.
had an RMO, right?
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. We got on the RMO, which is insane as well, and I'm super grateful for it.
Mhm.
Um,
What about
the
other
the problem
what about other
the problem that
opportunities you got from it?
in terms of like
Or in your casting career?
what specifically?
During that time, basically.
I mean, during the time, of course, like I've had UK stuff,
Mhm.
which a lot of people. I mean, I think people that are deep within CS and play CS probably know, right? But the typical viewer probably doesn't even stop or care to think that much about it. But not that they should or anything.
Mhm.
Um, but it's a very super like tough way to live as a freelancer, and a
Mhm.
lot of people just can't do it because the competition is there.
Mhm.
And if you want to dive into it as well, I can talk mostly about it, but it is super gate kept as well. I think
Mhm.
you've even spoke about it like publicly before, right?
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, and there really isn't that much work to be had
Mhm.
uh, for the amount of people that are trying to get the work. Like
Yeah.
the proportion of talent to work is just like way overload.
Mhm.
So in a way, you have to number one work hard and be very good at what you do to get
Mhm.
opportunities. And two, you kind of got to have a CV as well. Like
Mhm.
you're not gonna be picked up by ESL if you've been casting for 6 months on tier 2 event. Like
Mhm.
now, I'm talking like in 2024. It
Oh
just
yeah.
doesn't work.
I,
You have to be you already have to have your foot in the door. And then
mhm.
when someone eventually retires and pulls out, you've got to know that you've been probably working for like 2 or 3 years, and ESL probably already know who you are if you've networked correctly, right? Because that's another factor. You have to network. If you just sit there and cast for, I don't know, like Grid or Relog or whoever, and you don't network with anyone within ESL, there is 0% chance you get
Mhm.
asked to work for them.
Also, not just ASL, but network with the casters you get paired with. I mean, you got Haste. I could mention two casters in particular, Haste and Trav. They got paired together, I believe, in CCT, and they got to do a DreamHack event, like multiple DreamHack events and stuff like that as well. Like you got to network even within the casters because I think Trav also did one with Scriv, I believe, before Scriv and Neo became a thing. And also not to mention as well, like if you see in the EU qualifiers in particular, where oh man, I forget his name. Oh my god, he's that British fella, like he's heavily British, and it starts with his B. I forget his name.
B
Oh
Dog, Brandon,
no, not Brandon. The other one, Boffers. That's right. Like,
Buffers. Oh yeah, Buffers.
yep. And like a lot of these UK casters in particular, they all know each other. They all can co-cast and co-cast with each other as well. Like you see B
Yeah.
Dog with a lot of different people. You see Trav with a different lot of people. You see Neo with a lot of different people as well. And yeah, it's really reiterate Wix's point is that this is why I put it actually in my article where I talked about casting in EU. If you're serious about casting, you go to EU, go cast CCT, get paired with a bunch of casters, and it could go well. But what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a route in, but of course you're gonna need a show reel for CCT to pick you up, right? Like if you're a first up and coming starting caster, you're gonna have to build a massive show reel. It's going to be a lot of time invested. It's going to be a lot of your time that you're getting paid nothing to build the show reel. And then obviously you've got to present the show reel that you think is of good standard. And then of course you need to invest in, decent mic, decent PC, because you're going to need to broadcast your own games completely. You're going to have to observe. The observing isn't that important, but it has an aspect to it, especially when CS2, after it being out for like a year now, still doesn't have a good auto direct, which is embarrassing, by the way. So yeah, it's not easy. But at the end of the day, it's like any other form of work.
Yeah.
If you work the hardest, and you consistently work the hardest, you will get the opportunity. But the way you got to look at it is, you've got 50, 60, 70, 80 other people across the world trying to achieve the same thing as you want to achieve, and there's only 2 spots, right?
Yeah.
The 2 casts. So as long as you're in the top 2, you're good, but just know it takes a lot of time, takes a lot of investment, and I don't want to get too deep today, Josh, but it can be very mentally draining as well, right? Let's
definitely.
just say you've worked so hard for a year, you don't get any calls, you don't get any invites, or you get kind of put on the sideline.
Have you had any moments like that where you felt like you're on the sideline and you felt like you're not just getting anything at all, and you're just like questioning the entire endeavor of being in casting in the first place?
100%, absolutely 100%. I'm not ready to stop casting yet, so we may have to have like a number 2 so I can name names and stuff, right? But yeah, I've definitely had it on frequent occasions where people have said like, yeah, we'll get back to you. Like, this is good, we'll get back to you. Week goes by, don't hear anything. I messaged them again, and I don't hear from them ever again. So yeah, I mean, we could talk about ESL, like, what we get a gig if we're lucky, like once a quarter, if we're lucky, on average. We usually get like 2 kind of close together. So it kind of averages out across the year. But I'd love to have had more. For sure. Obviously, it's a bit awkward with the AU scene. I feel like we get every single AU qualifier there is, right, with ESL. But yeah, I've tried even doing some of the impact stuff for ESL.
Who you did the impact stuff with?
Kind of.
You do it with Parks or?
I've never done it. That's what I'm saying. I've never done it. I've tried to, but it was kind of on me, I guess, because our I don't know what we call it, our talent manager, the people that we speak to. From ESL told me to email. I can't remember if I did. I can't remember if I ever did. I remember sending an email to the talent manager for Pro League when I first moved here. Just as like a long shot. I was never expected to get an offer for Pro League, but yeah, I was just reaching out saying that I'm in Malta. If any like emergency comes up or you need someone last minute, who doesn't need flight paying for, doesn't need a hotel. You know, I'm available. You know.
Do you think location's really, really important for like casting in particular?
Say that again. Sorry.
Do you think location is very important for casting in particular, especially in Europe?
Well, I mean, it all comes down to visas, right? It's very awkward and hard for people from the UK to get work, like when it comes to LAN work within Europe, because most countries require you to have a European visa to be able to work. Like you get your 90 days as a British citizen.
Yeah.
You get your 90 days of holiday, but that doesn't mean you can work.
Yeah.
So from my knowledge, you get like Alex, you know, Machine. He lives in Malta. So it's easier for him to basically work and bounce all across Europe without having to worry about getting visas every single time.
Yep.
Because you have the freedom of movement within the EU.
Yep. And he's same with Sponge, same with Mac, who's doing it as well. I think.
Yeah.
Is Lucy in Malta or is Lucy still in the UK?
No, Lucy, I believe, is studying in the UK. I don't really talk to her that much. I've only had a few run-ins with her.
Oh, I'm just referring to like, you know, people in general. Like, who else is in Malta that's from the UK?
I think as well. I think there's a thing in Malta with Australians because basically how the visa process works in Malta is we are essentially classed as third country nationals. So we are basically put in a pool of people who are from all over the world, right? Like India, Pakistan, you know, all of the actual third world countries. And of course, being from England, although it probably feels like it sometimes, you know, we're just not a third world country. So it takes a bit longer. Whereas if I was from Europe, I could go to Germany next week and just start working in Germany.
Yeah.
For no visa, no problem, right? And I think Australia have it easier than the UK as well. So they can come over. It barely costs anything for ESL to even apply for a visa. I'm not like fully up to date and knowledgeable on it, but I'm pretty sure I'm correct when it comes to, you know, it being easier for Australians and Aussies.
Let's talk about further down track. So you got some close qualifier gigs. Did you go into any LAN events or anything like that during that time? Like this is after COVID. Like any LAN events that you get to cast at in particular?
Yeah, I had the pleasure of doing Epic LAN a few times, which is a UK LAN.
Sorry, go on. I was about to ask that question.
Yeah. So it's a UK LAN. Obviously, people from Ireland come over and play as well. If some rosters, like especially at the top of UKCS, have like a player from Norway or Denmark, they'll get flown in by the org if they're lucky. But really, like Epic LAN is a LAN, which I think every LAN should be in a way, but like no one makes profit from Epic LAN. Like Epic LAN don't even make a profit from their LAN. Like everyone runs at a loss.
What is it like though, in particular? Everyone. Like, you know, is it like just a giant gaming like PC, like wall to wall, or is it like conventions from like different sponsors? How's it like? You know, what's the experience like?
It's changed. It's definitely changed over the years. It's a super fun experience, like a really fun weekend, because it's like pure British drinking culture with Counter-Strike mixed in, right? You've got people turning up to LAN on Saturday, Saturday morning, because basically the LAN is from Thursday till Sunday.
Yeah.
Like it starts in Thursday afternoon, finishes on Sunday afternoon. But Sunday is literally like grand finals day because they have Valorant running, Counter-Strike running, StarCraft running. They have loads of tournaments going on at the same time. And they have one stage, right? So they do all the grand finals on the stage. But it's funny, you know, you play on Friday, you have like your group stage on Friday. And if you qualify for like playoffs, you have to come back like super early on Saturday. If you don't qualify for playoffs, you basically get put in like a consolidation bracket, which is like a separate tournament.
Yep.
So you basically have a playoffs with all the other teams that didn't qualify.
Yep.
But it's funny because as a Brit, you're with your mates and stuff on a Friday night. A lot of people just rock up on Saturday absolutely plastered still, like they're still drunk. So yeah, I think a lot of players have got into a bit of trouble because they're running at 40% of potential for their team because they decided to be up till 4 a.m. chugging Jaeger bombs and stuff.
Yep.
But that's epic, like
it's kind of like
if you're
kind of like Bruce Vegas in Australia in a way. Like they do a similar thing as well, where they have it's not as big, obviously. Where you can have that consolidation bracket. There's like 8 teams. They have a StarCraft tournament on the side as well, and it's kind of like just get everyone to catch up with each other. And would you recommend that for anyone aspiring to be talent, in particular in the UK scene?
100%. It's at the end of the day, you should always. I mean, from me, if you want to take advice from me, or don't, it's up to you. But it's always good to get LAN experience on your CV, right?
Mm-hmm. You were casting at that LAN?
Because, I was casting. I've played it. I've casted it. But I'll come back to, everyone runs at a loss, right? Epic LAN run at a loss because they have to pay for the venue for 4 days. And it's pretty affordable as well. Like, it's like £70 for 4 days of LAN.
Yep.
Like, it's really good. And then, of course, if you want to do a PC rental or whatever because you don't want to bring yours or you're coming from overseas or whatever, then obviously it costs a bit more. I think it's like £50 for a rental for a weekend, which, again, is like insane price. But as talent, like, you're not paid, right?
Yeah.
It's pure voluntary. They'll feed you.
Yeah.
They'll give you food and water, but yeah, like that is literally it, right? But you're doing it there again for enjoyment, to have it as a hobby, and again, as I said, like invest your time in building your CV and getting the experience under your belt, because casting LAN is just like so much better than sitting in your room on your own. You can hear the players, you can hear the shouting. You can be a part of the shouting, and casting the grand final.
That's good. That's awesome.
Casting the grand final. I did it. I've done it twice. The second time I did it because it was probably going to be my last ever Epic LAN. Because I was moving to Malta in like a week, so I got to cast it then. And casting in front of like a crowd as well. There's like 50, 60, 70 people, maybe a bit more, maybe being a bit too lenient with a number, but it's so much better. You can be a part of the show because that's what it is, right? And you can really amplify the show to the crowd, and you definitely feel it back from a crowd. Like when you're hearing the shouting, the cheering, and so on, it's like an insane feeling. It gives you goosebumps. I couldn't imagine
what sort of players
what it's like to cast in front of.
What sort of players were you casting at that LAN in particular? And also, what were some of the funniest antics that the crowd got up to? Because I know the UK players and also the UK scene in particular, and given football hooliganism that's popular there, I can imagine the antics would have been quite funny.
I'm trying to think of like some players that I've casted on the stage. Like Gizmy, Gizmy, he's played at an RMR.
Yep.
Verdant played as well. Who else?
Did you have Smuya at the LAN?
Smooth's been there, but I wasn't at that LAN.
Okay. Yeah.
But Smooth was there because there was a massive investigation.
Yeah.
Basically, because there was a screen behind the stage.
Yeah.
And I think both parties are a bit to blame, right? But at the same time, it's like, how do you please the crowd? I think that's the most important thing of any event. You got to make sure the crowd have really good, a really good experience. But in the game, Smooya turned around and started looking at the screen. Like, basically, there's like some trash talk. I don't feel he was purposely doing it to cheat. because he
Yeah.
just doesn't need to, right? And his team were winning by an absolute landslide.
Mm.
But he was looking at like the screen as like because he was chatting a bit of shit,
Yeah.
and he was like looking at the kill feed or something.
Okay.
But when you do that, you of
Yeah.
course then see the other team's money, and it's just like one of those like areas where it's like we kind of know what he was doing,
Yeah.
but at the same time, like it's not 100% he didn't look.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's one of those, and at the end of the day, like it's only Epic Land, right?
Mm.
So it's not that big of a deal. But I
Yeah.
think Smooya has a very like mixed bag. I'd say like in general in the UK scene,
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people. I would say, this is just from my perspective, by the way. I'm not saying this is fact.
Yeah.
I would say the people who like Smooya versus the people that despise him is like 40 to 60.
Yeah.
So I think like 60% of the UK CS fan base and player base, or whatever, just don't like him because he's just a very outspoken guy,
Yeah.
right? He's not afraid to speak. Sometimes maybe he comes very close to the line of what he says.
Yep.
Well,
we can ask Force on
but
that
yeah,
one.
that's UK Counter-Strike. You know, it is what it is. You know, English being English, I guess.
Yep. So after the Epic Lands and whatnot, you moved to Malta. So what did your casting career continue in Malta, or did you have to put it on a stop or anything like that for the full-time job, or did you just continue on the side?
No, so I always continue to do it on the side. I definitely stopped doing casting for free. Not out of ego or anything, but it just did not make sense for me anymore. You know, by this point, I've been casting for like 2 years or so. And obviously, I had the ESL gigs and stuff. I'd reached out to Relog as well, and that was unsuccessful. So yeah, there was no need for me to really continue to put work on the side and continue to cast for free. It didn't make any financial sense for me. So yeah, I just continued to obviously take gigs that were paid, obviously. And you know, in some evenings when the ESA season runs, you know, you get orgs that are looking to, you know, cast their games in advanced or main or whatever it may be, and you could pick up, you know, a bit of extra pocket money there. But for me, it was all about, you know, doing it because I enjoyed it. Like, don't get me wrong, the money's great, but you know, it's all about enjoyment as well. And if I've got spare time, I'm the person, like, instead of wasting 1 minute, 1 hour, you know, looking at HLTV or whatever, why not spend 1 hour casting and also getting paid? Like, it kind of goes without saying, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's pretty much what I've been doing since being here, casting for ESL. You know, the good thing with working for ESL is they do tend to give you like 1 month or 2 months notice. When a event's coming up, they book you in, and I could obviously speak to my work and say like, look guys, I'm doing this on this day. They're chill with it. I say, yeah, sure. And you know, just go from there, I guess. So I haven't really had a problem. Yeah, it's good. Like, I've never really encountered a problem. I think I've only ever missed one ESL gig when I first started a job back in the UK. Because I think who did you go on with? Was it Trav?
It was not. No, it wasn't Trav. It was Brett. He does like iRacing and stuff like that.
That's it.
Yeah, because your computer, what was it, wasn't shipped over or something like that, and we were trying to get one from ESL because you know they would have like rentals in there, and you couldn't get one.
Yeah, ESL. Well, yeah, I mean, I kind of get it in a way.
It's a 1% chance.
But at the same time, I get it, but at the same time, like, I'm also working for you, right?
Yeah. I think in a way, I think it's from a match integrity POV. Like if someone's got the PC and install something on it for another player, you can't, you know, if someone catches wind of that, even without, you know, you like if some journalist catches winds of it, they're gonna hype up.
For sure. Like, I get it. The only reason why I asked is because, like, if I was working for Grid and then I hit up ESL and said, like, guys, gotta use one of your computers, it's like obviously it's not gonna happen, right? Yeah. So, but yeah, I thought I'd give it a shot. But yeah, it's one of those. No, it's what it is. But you know, we're still here.
Yeah. What are you looking to do with the future of casting in particular? Like, you know, are you looking to just be active in the casting scene as you are now, like, you know, just doing it on the side, or is it, you gonna have a full tilt at it eventually, or you're just happy as it goes along?
Yeah, I think it's too big of a risk. I'm 27 now. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not like 21 anymore. I have bills that need paying.
Mm-hmm.
I have, you know, potential family coming soon. Not yet, but it's going to be down the line for sure.
Yep.
Um, so yeah, it doesn't really make sense for me, unfortunately, to
Mm-hmm.
be trying to make casting a super full-time thing.
Yeah.
The dream is still there, you know. If I
Mm-hmm.
get picked up for Pro League or something one time, that'd be an absolutely amazing feat to achieve and something I'd be very proud of doing.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also just being very honest at the same time. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's so many, and again, not to sound like I'm beating myself down, but there's so much better talent than me that is not being offered opportunities for Pro League.
Mm-hmm.
Few names like Dweg and Jay, for example, how they have not had like an insane ESL gig, is just absolutely insane to me. Those two guys
They
are
they
like
they
the
were on they
goats
were on the C
of.
stream at one point, but yeah, I think they were just unluckily pushed out. That's what I'm gonna say.
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things, right? And
Mhm.
I'm not going to go too deep into the politics and stuff like that,
Oh, we don't
but
need to go into that. Like they'll just.
I think everyone could say that knows Dweg and Josh,
Mhm. Like Dragon
or
J.
Dweg and Jay, sorry, clearly know them more than me. But I think a lot of talent has been picked up that aren't as good as them two. But yeah,
Hey.
because those people have maybe networked a bit better, they're in, with the crowd a bit. They get the offers. But fair play to them. Like
Yeah.
you got the game's the game, right? As the old saying goes.
And also not to mention
But
as
but yeah, it's a
well.
big shame.
Not to mention as well that everyone has different tastes. Like at the end of the day, it's not you deciding who gets the gig; it's the employer at the end of the day, which obviously causes friction amongst everyone in particular. Like sometimes where I'm like, oh, I thought I did a better job at that. It's just like, eh.
Yeah.
And then other times I'm like, oh, if they're not hiring me, then I'm pretty shit then. So that sort of stuff as well. And I wrote that also in an article about the frustration of just like going like, what the fuck am I really worth then? Like honestly.
Yeah,
Um,
it definitely does feel like that sometimes, for sure.
Yep. What would you see like what do you see like what do you say to like for a caster it's aspiring like what's the number one big lesson that you've learned in casting in particular?
Um,
Uh, Yep.
that's a great question. I would say I think networking is probably the biggest the biggest skill to have.
Mm-hmm.
Being well, of course, it comes with obviously being a nice person, right?
It's just having those soft
If you're
skills
not,
basically. It's just being personable.
yeah. Because as I said, if you don't network and you don't have friends within the industry and stuff, you're gonna struggle. And
Mm-hmm.
people aren't just gonna come. ESL, as much as people probably want to believe, ESL don't sit at their PC all day and go scouting through
Mm-hmm.
people streaming on their own Twitch channels and stuff, looking for the next big caster.
Mm-hmm.
That's just not what they do. They reach out to people that are a friend of a friend or know someone.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, they know they're casting already or whatever
Oh, I can
because of word of mouth.
Yep, I can definitely
Right?
agree with that because I reached out to Robin, who used to run DreamHack Winter of DreamHack in general, and Torben and his
Mm-hmm.
team to be like, hey, can you get me in touch with the esports side? They're like, oh, the esports side works separately to us, but we'll try to get you to Mod. So Mod used to run
Yeah.
all that stuff as well. And I talked to Mod to get all my gigs basically. Then it went to Janelle and all those other people in particular. And I got in touch with the agents that used to run one of my streamer friends' stuff. And he now runs all of DreamHack, like the events in Europe in particular. So I know him from that as well. And he's a real chill and awesome guy in particular. And I've been open with who those people are, and if they want to reach out to them, they can. Because at the end of the day, like if someone's, I don't mind who people network with. I just want to make sure that if they can have an opportunity, they can go get one.
Yeah, that's the way it should be, right?
Mm-hmm.
As the old saying goes, if you shoot for the stars, you may just land on the moon. And you know, at the end of the day, as I said at the start, it's all down to how much effort and how much time and how much work you want to put in.
Yeah.
And that's the bottom line. If you want to have it on the back burner and just cruise your way through, you're not going to get a shot. That's the brutal truth. Maybe 8 years ago, 9 years ago, maybe, but now, I mean, you look at the likes of like Bardolph, for example. I know who works, in the face it side of EFG. But even without DDK now, like, it's been really hard for him to get work, as far as I'm aware. So yeah, I mean, I know he does Impact and stuff like that now, but is Bardolph ever going to see like a Pro League invite ever again for talent? Really not, right? Maybe if DDK comes back to CS and those two get the duo going again, and ESL or whoever, Blast or whoever choose to run it back, for the old sake of time, maybe they get another shot, right? But it's just how hard it is now, and it all comes down to the amount of people and the amount of work. Is just like way overwhelming.
What's your biggest inspiration in like taking up casting in the first place?
Again, it kind of just happened by chance, right? I did it as like a joke around friends. Like, basically, my background in esports in general. I first of all was playing like competitive Call of Duty.
What's your biggest?
Since,
what was
your
biggest?
11?
What was your biggest inspiration in casting? Like when you were doing it, like who was the caster that you wanted to be like?
I'd always liked Bardolph and DDK. I think those two were the duo for me when I first got into Counter-Strike. But I think the inspiration, and people who have a COD background are going to know this guy. Maybe they know him from other esports. I know he does a bit of Halo and stuff.
Yeah.
But Puckett, I don't know if you know Puckett.
I know James.
Ever heard of Puckett?
Yeah, his name. It's Chris. Yeah,
Chris Puckett.
Yeah.
He was so good back in the day, and when I was growing up, he was like my favorite ever caster, right? And then obviously he started like putting away. He was going into more like presenter.
He did like MLG and stuff like that as well.
Yeah, exactly. And then I got into Counter-Strike, and then the first like duo cast that I ever really got into enjoying was Bardolph and DDK. And yeah, that was like, I wouldn't say I built like a blueprint based off those guys at all. Because I would say, actually, if I was to say what my kind of style of casting like, it's probably a lot like Machine in a way, I guess. Like, it's not like super gameplay. It's also like a bit of fun and a bit of like non-relevant things mixed in as well. So yeah, I'd say like if I was to compare, my style, it would be Alex, but my inspiration to really get into casting was Puckett, and then DDK and Bardolph.
Yeah. That was the last question for this section. What was the biggest lesson that you've learned in casting in general? Like, what was the biggest lesson you've learned as you're going through your career?
With specifically casting, or So specifically casting, I think, I mean, I could turn it into a tutorial, I guess, of some upcoming talent, or however you want to call it. I would say something that doesn't, because you don't really get tips on how to cast, right? You kind of just self-teach yourself. I think that's very important. I think that's very important because it keeps the uniqueness to each caster, and you don't want 10 brand new casters coming onto the scene that all cast the same way. It's just horrible, right? It's horrible for the viewer. But one thing I would say I've learned, and I think it's a very good tip, albeit a small tip, but when you're casting a game and it's all going a bit crazy and around, let's just say like you've got a five. Let's just use Mirage as an example. Let's just say you got a 5-man rush coming out of apps, and it's a 5-man stack on the CT side on B side. there's going to be so much going on. It's going to be impossible to call it, even if you're an auctioneer.
Yeah.
You know how fast those auctioneer talks?
Yeah.
It's going to be impossible to see what's going on everywhere. The best thing you can do is look at the kill feed and kind of wing it. And that sounds really silly, right? But you can paint a picture very quickly in your head by just reading names and reading kills in a kill feed, than your eyes having to look at 10 different things going on at the same time on the screen.
Yeah.
It allows your brain to kind of work out what's going on just by reading the names and ignoring the actual crosshair and what's going on the main feed. I think that's one important thing.
Yeah. I was going to make a joke about Looney Tunes. Like, yeah, all I can imagine is just like a bunch of people fighting the smoke. It's like, you don't know which one's going to come out the winner.
Yeah, it's true. Like, there's like 3 fights going on at once, and at the same time, you don't want to be mundane and just say what everyone else is seeing, because then it's just boring, you know? So if you just... a lot of times I just cast. I literally just look at the kill feed when I know it's going to be crazy, because, you know, by playing CS and watching CS for a very long time, you just know when shit's about to hit the fan, right? Can I swear on here?
Yep. Oh, yeah, you can swear.
Okay,
I have no sponsors, mate.
Okay, a bit late for that. Okay. So yeah, when shit's about to hit the fan, you know, like, it's coming. Like a good 10 seconds before it starts. So you can prepare yourself, and then a lot of the times I find myself just look at the kill feed and just kind of not making up, it sounds really bad, but like coming up with a storyline based on what the kill feed's telling me. And then eventually it'll die down. It's like a 2v2, really tense. Everyone is sitting. And then you can come back onto the crosshair and really start calling the play-by-play again.
It's more just summarize the story in like 10 words or less. That's what we're trying to say in that chaos. Like, don't try to commentate the chaos. Just summarize the chaos in 10 letters. Or 10 words.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Well, you can summarize in 10, you know, barbarol. You know, that's on the 10 letters.
Giggity?
Maybe. Diggity. You call everything diggity these days. Next up, we're going to go for the first topic. And we're going to talk about ESL Pro League, because we went to talk about this last week. But we've got a few games now. And like I say, ESL Pro League 20 has been co-streaming a part of it as well. What are your biggest disappointments and your biggest highlights of this tournament so far, of ESL Pro League?
I think highlights in terms of teams and what's unfolded.
Can be teams and players in particular. Just have a team and have a player that's done really well.
M80, I think it goes without saying, right? Those guys are on an absolute heater.
Look at me, now. Ricky. Look at me.
M80 are just like on an absolute heater right now. I loved the whole lake shit talking. I think it's been absolutely great. I think it's been very good for like M80 stock as well, right? As much as it's been good for him, I think M80 are getting a lot more eyes on them just because of the behavior of late.
Yeah.
And from an org standpoint, it's obviously very good.
And also not to mention as well with Lake, like he doesn't overstep the line. He's just banter and trash talk, like good trash talk. It's like, you know, on the NBA, you know, it's like you know, do the choking side and stuff like that. You know, it's like kind of like that.
Yeah, it's like super American shit talk. It's super American. Because again, like the UK probably goes across the line.
Mate, where is the line? that's how far over they are.
That's the thing, right? But yeah, I mean, I think that's been a great thing to watch. I think they play today, so that would be interesting to see a big game against MIBR. I think it's very winnable.
Yeah, it's definitely very winnable. So
I think a low light, you've got to look at FaZe, right? Very, very bad performance from FaZe to go out the way they did to Complexity as well. But that's the brutalness that Pro League brings with this like single elim format. You lose one series, you have one bad day, and you are going home. You are going to D_airport.
As they call it.
And that's that's the harsh reality of Pro League. I think that's why a lot of people don't put winning Pro League at like the top 3, like players I'm talking about. I think that's why you won't see many players put Pro League in the top 3, because it really is just like an event on current form. If you're on a heater, you have a very good shot, right? Like M80 for example. However, if you go to like RMR or major format, M80 sitting in like the last 8, it's hard to tell. Double LM, Bays is still in there. If we're going off like what's happened so far, it's tough. But again, that's good. It's a really good format for upsets and entertainment and underdog stories, because as I said, you just go on a heater, you can build a massive storyline, make a big deal out of it. Still waiting for a really good like run out of the AU scene in Pro League. It will happen, I'm sure it will.
So am I, and I could go on with my highlights and lowlights. Okay, the highlights, of course, I guess do I have to keep it the same as you, because I think M80 is a big highlight in particular. But I think another one that is a bit of a highlight as well, even though they did lose in the upper final, was Liquid. Team Liquid, that new roster, is actually taking names and has shut out Virtus.pro 2-0 as well. And seriously, it absolutely, they also beat Complexity and humiliated them as well. This new Liquid lineup is the bomb. Ultimate is really, really good. And he's done incredibly well with that team on such short notice as well. Like, he's really put his name on the stage as well. I know he's got a bit of a trash talk in him as well. He trash talked Hulzerk, where he says, like, he's not even playing to win, bro. He's so stupid. I hate people like that. It's got that team com up as well. But Liquid have done really, really well. I think the only loss they had was the Vitality, and they still won a map of Vitality as well. And Vitality aren't a slouch team. But a low light, I'm going to say, is ENCE. Like, you go out of tournament not even winning a single series, and you lose to Atox, a team that you should be beating. Atox didn't even make the Asia RMR. And that roster's just gotten worse. They lost Dihar, and that roster is just going to be gone. Like, they're going to disband that roster and probably like keep 1 or 2 players, and that's it. And for an organization like ENCE to deliver such a lemon like that compared to their previous performances, where they've got pretty deep with a team that's not so great, has been immense. But now this is a time where they have a team that actually should perform a bit better, and have been absolutely terrible. I mean, let's see their losses. They lost to Liquid. Understandably, Liquid's just been killing everyone. They lost to Red
They
Canids.
lost to the Brazilian team, right?
Yeah, Red Canids.
Like, what the hell was that?
And then they lose to Atox as well. It's just like, bro, you're losing to Scenes. And also Scenes teams. Atox is not even in the, like, top 2 of Asia. They're like number 5 and number 6.
Yeah, it's really bad.
That's awful in particular. Now, I could have said FlyQuest, but like overall, I don't think FlyQuest performed as dismally as, let's say, ENCE and stuff like that as well, because for FlyQuest in particular, going into that tournament, people didn't expect too much from them. But, obviously we want a bit more as well. The next team after ENCE would be Koi. Koi performed so fucking poorly. They didn't even win a single map, and they lost to Wildcard. And Wildcard...
Yeah, but I think Wildcard, in all fairness, like, Wildcard did perform okay. In across, even against Spirit, like, they weren't terrible.
Yeah.
Like, they gave Spirit a good run. They took them to an overtime on Nuke, which is a Spirit map pick, if I'm remembering.
That's correct.
Correctly.
Yep.
So yeah, I think, and as well, like, you look at the roster, all due respect to Stanislaw, but any roster with Stanislaw in 2024 is going to be a struggle, in my opinion.
Yeah, I was going to say, JBA was the main player of that wildcard roster as well. He's an absolute immense superstar. And I'm going to say, we will probably see more of him in probably like Complexity and Liquid and stuff like that. Given how Lake has worked out in M80, people are going to start thinking maybe we should do that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's definitely a possibility. I mean, he's shown a good showing of himself on LAN, so it is definitely possible.
Can I shift it to the AU teams, or I'll let you finish your point?
Go for it. No, go for it. Go for it. I mean, I was just looking at like Astralis as well.
Yep.
You were expecting maybe something a bit better, but it's kind of been very stagnant and mundane for a while.
You got Mouse as well, not qualifying for the playoffs.
Yeah.
There are actually so many lowlights you could really highlight on in particular from teams that are struggling and also teams that really should make the playoffs. And also, not to mention, put Mouse in the phase bucket. They got 2-0 by complexity.
Yeah.
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 Now, overall, we go to the Australian teams. I got to say, Rooster, great against Mouse. And then they got dumpstered by every other team afterwards. They're just walking into crossfires half the time. And I'm just like sitting there, guys, you got the flashbangs and whatnot. Use them. Like, just use it. Don't walk into these crossfires and just let Australis farm you for money. They're not going to miss their shots if they're not being, pressured at all. And I gotta say, overall, like, Rooster, they just had to keep the momentum up. Like, their consistency was great against Mouse. But against Big and Australis, there was just no structure, no procedures. Australis didn't even have to go to plan B. They could just stick with plan A, put their feet up, and just win the rounds. It was really uninspiring to see, considering what they did against Mouse, basically, which is basically pushed them to, the brink, essentially. Now, FlyQuest in particular.
Yeah.
FlyQuest in
I just to add on to that as well. I think I've said this before. Like when we've been casting ESL, it's just so hard and I do really sympathise with the AU scene because orgs I mean, Rooster aren't even orgs, right?
Yeah,
like it's just a meme org.
Yeah, they're not.
They're not going to be able to pay out for like a boot camp in Poland where they're able to scrim.
They have paid out for a boot camp
teams
before, I believe, but that was.
But you can't do it consistently.
Yeah.
You can't do it consistently, right? And that's the problem.
Mm.
So when it comes up to playing and actually being in server with all of these tier 2 and tier 1 teams, your scrims have kind of been a lie at that point, right? Because it's nowhere near the level. And it's nowhere near the structure. It's nowhere near the individual prowess that all these teams have.
Yeah.
And it's you're kind of like a rabbit in headlights when you get to Pro League and you kind of lose the way they did to Mouse because they're going into that third map for sure. Okay, we've really brought a really good comeback, but we've lost OT, but we're good here, boys. Like, we are very good.
Yeah.
And then you lose, and it wasn't really that close either. I think they had a 11-1 or a 10-2 first half or something like that.
It was 13-6 in the
map
end.
3.
But yeah, it was not close. Let me see the.
And then your head it's kind of impossible for your head not to drop. Like, you're at Pro League, you're at LAN. It's really fun. When you're kind of getting shit on, it's not fun, and it does play on your mind. And if they were able to scrim consistently against these teams, that roster has the potential to be so much better than what it is. And that's a lot. So yeah.
And also, not to mention as well, Rooster don't verse a lot of teams that are protocol based, like Australis and Big, and you could see that big time because Australis had their backup plans after crossfires, how they set up, and which players do set up, which players engage. And Rooster just had no idea. Like, they had no structure on who was going to engage what does the second player do, what does the first player do on the executes in particular. You could see it, and Australis and Big were just basically tearing them apart. And it's because they've never experienced playing against those rosters, because in AU, it's a lot more puggy, a lot more fluid. There's not a rigid system, so they have not really experienced how to break a rigid system. And they were just walking to system after system after system, and it was just not good watching, basically. It was just watching, meat going into a meat grinder. Like, it was just, ugh. I think it was the...
But you just can't blame them.
Yeah.
I think that's the main thing, right? They're very limited of what they can really work with.
Yeah, it's just
and it's sad, it's sad that that's the harsh reality at the end of the day. It really is.
It's just inexperience, and also not to mention the big thing Bruce have as well is keeping up that stamina and consistency over a long period. They have a big issue with that because they did everything for Mouse, and then their consistency went down, their play went down, and they got cleaned up. But let's talk about FlyQuest in particular. So FlyQuest, I would say overall, because I did class some of the maps in particular, their game against Eternal Fire was actually very, very close, given it was a 2-0. And that Dust 2 was 13-7. And that Dust 2 had FlyQuest losing winnable rounds, which is, you have no idea the amount of frustration I had in that second half of Dust 2, where they lost the pistol round due to a miracle defuse by Major, and then they lose another 3v2, and it's just like, oh, that's the frustration I have with FlyQuest in particular. Against FaZe, there was another close 2-0, 13-9, 13-11, where they tested FaZe as well. And then they beat Lin Vision on a reverse sweep. And then they lose to Sun Gao in also to a close 2-0, 13-11, 16-12.
I think they got very unfortunate that Sangal were on a bit of a heat of the event. Like they beat Heroic that event as well in Pro League. So, they beat Heroic and then lost to Heroic.
Yeah, that's right.
So, unfortunately, if they had a bit of a different run, they'd probably go further. I think the people behind FlyQuest, without even factoring in a bit of bias, they were probably expecting FlyQuest to go a bit further.
Yeah.
In my opinion, right? So, but that's again, it's Pro League. You can get unlucky with some of the run-ins that you get. You know, FaZe lost.
Yeah.
So FaZe lose, and then FlyQuest lose to Eternal Fire on the same day.
Yeah.
So then they play against FaZe in the 0-1 match on day 2.
Yeah, what's the funny thing? That's the second time that's occurred. The second time that's occurred that FlyQuest have played FaZe in a lower bracket.
And there are other 0-1 teams that FlyQuest just beats. It's that simple. So, it's unfortunate run. On another day, could they beat Sangal? Absolutely. And they had very close games for the majority of the tournament, but unfortunately they were just on the losing sides on those games.
So one thing in particular that was criticised was Alistair in particular. Now, a lot of people picked up on Ali like missing easy shots in particular as well. I feel say overall, he's like the new Hooksy, okay? He's being over-criticised and over-analysed for real no reason. Like, in particular, I think it was the Sun Gao game. Like, I can say with Eternal Fire and FaZe, there was some shots that he missed, okay? But the Sun Gao game, the people who went on like a pork chop that he was like dropping the game for them, and I'm sitting here going like, dude, he whiffed 3 shots the entire Vertigo. People were acting like he lost Vertigo for them. And I'm like sitting there going, bro, he's won 2 clutches that were unfavorable to him. Like, for example, one of the clutches, he wall banged, I think it was like Gangster, through the A boxes, you know, the default setting, through the A boxes to win. He was on 10 HP. He wall banged with the AWP to win on that, the unfavorable clutch. And I think overall, like, you know, I know 100%, we're going to say right now, I reckon, this is my opinion, that if they don't qualify for the major, Alistair will 100% be replaced because missing easy shots and being inconsistent is not really good for a power position like an AWP. But overall, I gotta say, I think it's overstated on how, like, it's overstated and overstated on, like, how bad he actually is. Because I don't think he's that bad. Like, he misses a couple of shots, but that's the couple of shots that you need to hit. And that's the inconsistency argument that I put forward. But overall, because I was looking at the ADRs, you know Samey had a lower ADR than Alistair in their series.
Probably. I mean, it doesn't really surprise me.
Yeah.
I think the only thing I will say is now CS2 is MR12.
Mm-hmm.
That naturally and automatically drives up the cost of the AWP. Even though it's the same price, the cost of the AWP is more expensive because you have less rounds to build economy. You have less rounds to save and therefore build economy. So the AWP is indirectly more expensive.
Yeah.
Now, when you eventually get the AWP on your AWPer that you're expecting to get frags and he doesn't do it, he is going to be over-criticized. You know, people are going to nitpick. People are going to over-analyze what he's doing wrong because, you know, it is like you don't get that many chances when you're losing rounds. You do not get that many chances to get out the AWP. And obviously that's a position that FlyQuest find themselves in against pretty much most every tier 1 team.
Yeah.
Now, if FlyQuest, I mean, look, it was a bad tournament for him. It was not what his usual performances are. You know, you'd like to see him, you know, if he has one stinker,
Mhm.
He usually comes back in the same series and has a good one.
Yep.
So, but obviously this event, it just wasn't it for him. And every player has had a bad LAN. I don't think there's a single player that has played for, how many years has he been playing for now? 5?
Probably,
6?
I'd say probably the only person I would say that may not have had a bad LAN is Rain from FaZe, but he's just Mr. Consistent. Like, he's consistently.
I think Rain. I think Rain's had a few stinkers.
Yeah.
Recent, as of recent.
Mm.
I mean, he's getting on a bit now as well, right? He's like 30. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think. People are gonna go, oh, what about Donk? Well, Donk's not been playing for 3 years.
Exactly.
He hasn't had opportunities to drop the ball yet, really. Don't get me wrong, playing absolutely lights out right now.
Oh yeah.
But he's not gonna be able to do that for 8 years. It's just not gonna happen. So yeah, I think it's just one of those. Addy is a player as well, who in the past pro leagues has liked to talk a bit of smack as well, right? So you kind of build like, you're gonna get people, for very outspoken people. It's kind of like when we spoke about Smea earlier.
Yeah.
If you talk a load of smack, you're gonna get people that absolutely love you. You're gonna get people that hate you. You turn into like Marmite, or what do you call it, Vegemite in Australia. Like, that is the kind of player you just end up being. It's like Donk, when he started talking all that smack, people used to talk either shit about Donk or they loved him, right? And there was no one that says, oh yeah, Donk's okay, I don't mind him. It was either like, you don't like him, you like him. And that's the way Ali is. Or has been in the past. And then, of course, when you have, these bad performances, and I remember seeing his tweet saying, like, look, I'm doing my best to really turn it around, which obviously I believe him. Why wouldn't he? It's just one of those. And it's definitely something that plays on your mind. And it's easier said than done. But I think a lot of players, when they are having bad spells, whether it be 3 days, 4 days, 5 days at LAN, they should just stay off social media, HLTV. Don't look at any of that shit. Like, just do not look at any of it, because you are not going to get any good out of looking at it. You're not going to get someone on HLTV forums saying, "Oh, I believe Ali's going to bring it back, guys." It's all negative. It's all negative. It always is, and it always is on Twitter. The best people to reach out to is your friends, your teammates. And ideally, I'd like to think Ali has people behind him that are going to be there giving him encouraging words, right? That's the people you need to lean on. Fuck social media. Forget HLTV. And just get yourself in your zen and focus. It may not work, but at least you tried. And at least, you haven't got all that negativity floating around in your head at the same time.
Overall, like I gotta say, like looking at some of the stats in particular, I gotta say, like, I don't think he had really, like, considering what was happening previously. I think this tournament was a bit of a step up from him. He hit a lot of the shots, because I watched a lot of games that you needed to hit. The ones that you needed to hit to statement around. As I said, he only whiffed 3 times on Vertigo. Everyone acted like he whiffed like 9 times. He only whiffed 3 times on Vertigo, and one of them, it was a quick switch. He switched. Oh no, not a quick switch. He moved as he shot, which means the game goes off.
Yeah.
And the other 2 times, it was just one of those stinkers that you have. Like, you think you've got the line, but you're doing something wrong. And the other times, like, there was 2 clutches he made that were unfavorable to him, and he won both of those. And that put FlyQuest in a really good position overall. With Eternal Fire, like, he did some pretty decent work as well. But overall, like, I think it's just overstated on how he's like one of the worst players ever. I'm like, no, so I think that's just an unfair criticism, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I think anyone with a brain doesn't think that statement's true.
Yeah.
I mean, he's been around the block for a very, very, very long time, and obviously, I understand, just because you've been around for a long time doesn't mean you're good in today.
Yeah.
But he still has it, right? He still definitely has it. It's just unfortunate that, he's off the back of Dallas, which just was not that good.
Cologne.
Cologne.
Yeah, because
They had the play-in, right? But I don't think he was that bad. I don't think he was that bad in Cologne.
Yeah. Oh, that's where a lot of criticism came out of from, in particular, was Cologne.
Yeah. But I think it's also built off Dallas as well.
Yeah,
if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah, it was Dallas.
They lost
Cologne.
to Big. They got absolutely destroyed by Big, and then they got destroyed by Spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And again, when you're getting destroyed, as I said, when you're getting destroyed by teams, let me look at this.
I think it was Dallas.
When you're getting destroyed by teams, you can't build up economy for the AWP. So he can't perform. He performs best on the AWP. It's just MR12. It's what it is. And it's an AWPer's nightmare. It's fine for people like Munzy who have a tier 1 team across the board. Nico, people who are going to be able to frag and get rounds and build economy for Munzy to put out an AWP. FlyQuest, unfortunately, don't have the same privilege, and neither does Alistair. Yeah, they lost 13-1 to Spirit. He dropped to 0.24. You can't get the AWP out. And bear in mind, Dallas is still best of ones, right? Well, it's best of one, and then best of three.
Also, not to mention as well, you have AWPer's nightmare, i.e. Donk as the entry, and if you miss that shot, Donk's taking your head off.
Exactly, and in a game like Counter-Strike 2, where it's super heavy on the peaker's advantage, people like Donk are going to take you for an absolute mile.
Anyways, let's just get off that topic in particular, okay? So, what do you think? Have you been watching the skits for ESL Pro League?
I always do. They are absolute Golden Globe comedy worthy.
What was your favorite one for this season in particular? Like, there's been a lot of quizzes and a lot of tier lists and stuff like that. What was your favorite tier list one? I'm going to say right now.
Oh, favorite tier list.
I go with mine. I think it was Rushley's tier list to Yenko, and Yenko was trying to metagame it, but Rushley was just trolling him, was just naming random shit.
Yes, that was pretty good. And
then the
I think that's the only one that really springs to mind.
And then the Rooster tier list of the ex-Rooster players, where they had ASAP and Chelios rank the ex-Rooster players, and they put Netic at the bottom.
Netic catching absolute strays.
Yeah, and 80k in the top. And I'm going to say everyone, I think Viridian was number 2 and Juices was number 3. I'm just going to say I think Juices was a bit robbed because Juices and Netic were a scary duo when they were in the same team. And also didn't have like Spudwrecker and Deckney or JCG Eva who filled in for them while 80k and ASAP and stuff like that were banned. So I'm a bit... And Netic as well. I think Netic got banned as well. I'm trying to remember. I think Netic did get banned for a bit. And I'm a bit surprised they didn't get a mention. But yeah, as I said before, the skits, some of them have been really, really, really good. Like, obviously...
The VacNet 3.0 is absolutely incredible. You know that one?
I haven't watched it.
When they're in the car park. Oh, you've got to watch it.
Okay.
They're in the car park, right? And the theme is about, obviously, VacNet.
Yeah.
But basically, it's Henry... No, it's not. Henry G is like trying to sell SnapTap keyboards in the car park. Right? And then you've got Alex and Sponge in the car.
Yep.
Who are like the VacNet police.
Yep.
And they're like undercover. They're waiting to catch Henry G selling SnapTaps.
Yep.
And at the same time, they've got why can't I ever remember his name?
Hugo?
Canadian guy.
Oh, Canadian?
No. No, is he Canadian or American?
Steel? You talk about Steel?
No. No, black hair. He's always, I think, is it S?
Who? A Stunner?
Oh, I can't
you mean
remember.
Trace? You mean
Stunner. Yeah, Stunner. He is like spin botting, jumping around, just one tapping everyone from spawn. And they're in the VacNet car, like, yeah, don't worry about that guy. We'll leave him for another day. And they're focusing on the guy setting SnapTap and nullbinds.
Yeah,
that's a really good one. It's like a perfect description of Valve and Vac. Honestly, it's perfect. You have to watch it.
Oh yeah. The other one I found quite funny as well during it as well. The one I've got, I'm trying to think of it. Mac Yoga's been pretty good, and the aerobics, they made the FlyQuest boys do aerobics. Trying to find the other ones. I think the funny one is definitely the Fight Club one. This is an old one, obviously, with Hugo and Henry G. And how
I think that's only last one, right?
Yeah,
that's only the last Pro League. But they had really good ones in the last one. The possession of Donk.
Yeah.
They had loads last season, last Pro League.
Oh, they had the one of Snacks with Lord of the Rings, where Snacks is dinner for.
Yeah, that's it.
Yep.
Yeah, very, very good.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, props to the guys behind the scenes at Pro League, because like when you think of Pro League,
Yep.
you think about more than just the games. You think about all of this like comedy side to it, and it's like a super fun event.
Yeah.
I think ESL have done very well, and of course the people behind the scenes like Jackson and so on, who I think is very worthy of a shout out.
Yep.
They've done very well to keep the core culture of Pro League, with it being a very fun, not so serious event. Well, it is of course a serious event, but the talent have a bit more freedom to express themselves, have a bit of fun.
Yeah. Oh man, fucking I am Dallas of Dinko, man. He's playing on fucking IMAX.
Yeah.
Gets me every time.
Classic.
And him and Blair were doing the B stream, and he was watching CS on a mobile. I'm like, this is not IMAX. What the fuck, man?
Yeah, what else is there that's really good? They have so many. They just have so many. Don't change your accent. Don't change your accent's a great one. With Moses.
If I can't think my accent, what does that one think? He's got an American accent every time. Because no one wants to hear Australian accent, you fucking...
Yeah. Classic. So good. And they're really good at like memeing scenes out of really good films and really good movies. Like American Psycho, they have one.
Yep.
With Stunner.
Yeah, with Stunner Trays, yeah.
Very, very good.
Yeah, because the hard part of Stunner, remembering his name, because they call him Trays as well by his first name, because Trays is his first name.
Yeah.
They have the steel, the crosshairs, and his crosshair over the Shocks and Freya. That gets me every fucking time. But the infamous ads were actually from Philadelphia, where Steel's on the windowsill and they're talking about match fixing. There's always a meme about that.
I don't recall that one.
But he's like on the windowsill and they're like referring. I'm not sure they're referring to fixing or match fixing or something like that. And he's just in the windowsill being, because of course he's the part of the infamous I Power stuff.
Yeah.
Because they actually parodied it. Said Foggers on doing that as well. Like don't cheat, because obviously Foggers got banned for betting on other games. So they had a meme of him as well. They replicated it, I believe. In before Foggers tells
Speaking of cheating in Counter-Strike, do you know who's been officially unbanned today?
Yes, Forsaken, the Indian.
Mr. Word.exe.
Yeah, I'm gonna run Word.
What a guy.
Gonna run Word.exe in his absolute pleasure.
Next one is Publisher.exe.
Oh, Excel.
Who uses Publisher?
I think.
Or Excel?
I use Excel. In fact,
I'm saying Publisher. Do you remember Publisher?
Yeah, I do. Back in the OG days.
Do they even have Publisher now?
I don't think so.
Do they still even have that?
I'm not
used to make like brochures and stuff with it.
Let me see if I can find it. Because I've got the entire word suite. No, they still have Publisher. They still have Publisher. They have access.
There you go then.
They still have access. They still have access as well. People don't even use some of these.
Yeah.
Let's get on to our next topic. And I've got to say overall, this has come up due to a lot of things in particular that I don't really want to name. But we talk about whistleblowing and esports. So, in particular, this can range from talent in particular, and it can range to players, and it can range to anyone in particular. And like I say, this is a really tough topic to talk about, because it's like whistleblowing in general, like saying that someone's doing you wrong, is actually a very, very hard thing to do from a lot of talent perspective as well. I'll start off with this as particular. This is without talking about CS. This is talking about RoboCop. So if you didn't hear the stuff about RoboCop, so basically Terry Keegan ran the show, and he had plagiarized it from I forget the writers, but he plagiarized the script. Like the writers presented him the script, like, you know, how this is RoboCop, you want it, and he declined it twice, and then he took it and ran it to another person, which is plagiarism. And these guys, they knew he did plagiarize their work, and he was like, we're going to take him to court. But no lawyer would pick him up, and everyone was telling him, drop it, you won't be able to work in the scene ever again if you do it. That's kind of like the stuff of whistleblowing in general, is that there's a potential that you immolate your entire career. Just like that, if you just blow the whistle on something in particular. And there are just so many examples of whistleblowers who's risked everything to, you know, bring an issue to light.
Yeah.
sometimes it's not
I
that
think
not
that's
that
just
extreme.
that's no, it's no, but I think it's also pretty unfair to say that someone's I don't know, someone's what's the word I'm looking for? Because I don't want to like talk down on it too much.
Mm.
Like if someone's a victim, it doesn't matter how big or how
Yeah.
small, you should have the security to be able to whistleblow on it, right? Like you
Yeah.
should be able to
Agreed.
discuss it and report it
Mm-hmm.
without fearing for backlash.
Yeah.
I think that's the main key. Unfortunately, it's not the world that we live in, unfortunately. And it
Mm.
is a very hard
Mm.
thing to do. I mean, I'm not going to obviously go into detail, but if you want an example, you just look at Maniac, for example, recently.
Mm-hmm.
Multiple people were a bit scared to speak up,
Mm-hmm.
clearly,
Yeah.
because as soon as one person does, everyone comes out of the bushes and starts
Mm-hmm.
speaking up, which
Yeah.
they should feel secure enough to be able to do without someone taking the leap of faith first, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that is unfortunately just the awkward situation, the awkward world that we live in today. Um,
I think overall we can take a lot of lessons out of that, particularly on like with whistleblowing. And I think overall is like talk to people in the scene and be like, hey, this happened to me. And it's like I say, not even just let's just put sexual assault aside because that one's a very,
yeah,
very hard topic.
it's super extreme.
It's super
Yeah.
extreme. It's bad. But like
The
with
one I can't go into detail on because I've never experienced it myself. So.
yeah, of course we're gonna stay away with that because that's extreme. That's in the criminal territory as well. Like I had one person in particular say like you're lucky you're not in fucking jail because it's assault.
Yeah,
Yeah,
of course.
I think one thing in particular with whistleblowing is like, especially with missed payments, your invoices aren't being paid in time in particular. I think my general rule is that you give them a few opportunities and you give them a few opportunities, be soft, strict deadline, and then you out on Twitter. You just basically let everyone know. Make sure you talk to your fellow talent as well, because a lot of things, as you said, it took one person to speak up and then everyone else started speaking up. I think that's probably the name of the game is that if people, process it themselves and talk to others, and if other people are saying the same thing, that is more of a
Yeah,
strength in numbers sort of thing. And also be at the same time, like be empathetic. It takes a while for a lot of these claims to come together, and a lot of times when people get to the Twitter stage, they've already gone through the other stages already, where they're trying to
yeah,
not make it a big scene, because no one wants to be the
yeah,
person shouting it out because a lot of tournament organizers see one person shout it out, and if they're making a common occurrence, they do that. They're just not going to hire him because they're going to be like, it's not worth the drama and stuff like that as well. And that's the side from the tier you're going to be careful about. And that's what everyone's afraid of, is that they cry out about this, and then every tier is like, yeah, we don't want to hire you because you did that to us, basically.
yeah. It's something I'm for sure. When I stop casting,
Yep.
it's something that I'm going to bring up because I'm not naming names. I'm not outing anyone as of
Yep.
right now because again, it's the same situation.
Mhm.
If I say the things I'm going to say, there are some people
Mhm.
specifically that are just not going to have me on anymore.
Yep.
So yeah, for the sake of like however much of my career I've got left.
Well, I'm gonna say we're experiencing it right now. It's like really difficult to really shout out these issues in particulars because it's because you're just gonna like it basically essentially just burn bridges that you may not want to burn.
Well, that's the thing, right?
And the world's grey as well. Like it's like it's not everyone in that area or everyone in that company in particular or organization. There
yeah,
are some good people who are trying to do the best they can.
yeah. So I mean, I'll just out a few people because I know they're never coming back, and I think it's already public anyway. So I worked at a tournament before, which was pretty much a scam tournament.
It was like the
back in
Hydra
when
one,
it was
wasn't it?
lockdown. Yeah, Hydra Cup.
Yep.
Into the Breach didn't get paid. The tournament, no one that played in that tournament really basically got paid.
Yep, that's been outed. Yep.
So yeah, I mean, talent No one did.
How did that come to be? Did you
It also come. Say again.
How did that come to be? Did you talk to the other talent? Did you wait for Into the Breach to post anything? Like, how did that one get outed? Because we can actually go through a worked example
I
on
think
this.
it was sure. So
Yep.
first thing I did was I spoke to the person who was basically running the whole show.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was a one-man show.
Yep.
Maybe two, maybe three. I don't think it was a big group.
Yep.
And basically, it was the same person who asked me to do it, asked Brandon to do it, asked Freddie to do it.
Yep.
You know, all these other
Crabby,
casters who are pretty big names in the industry. Weren't so much at the time, but you know, here we are today. And yeah, basically, how it all started was they wanted us to do the work. Me being very, I wouldn't say naive, I'd say it's a bit unfair, but someone who didn't know full depths of the industry and how it is to be a freelancer and how much you should look out to protect yourself.
Yep.
You know, just took the work because it wasn't a massive amount of money. I think it was like $30 for a best of 3 or something like that. It wasn't crazy amounts, but at the same time, I wasn't getting that many paid gigs, so it's good for me, you know. So yeah, maybe it was 50 or 60. I don't remember exactly.
Let's get to the part where like they weren't going to pay.
So what happened was down the line when the tournament finished, which was agreed pre-tournament. That they'll pay within 30 days of the tournament ending because that's when they're going to receive their sponsorship money. This is a tournament that was sponsored by 1xBet, who are still within, you know, Counter-Strike. And multiple people. They presented to me, and I don't have it anymore, unfortunately, but because it's on an old Discord account. But they had like a whole grid contract that they sent to me to prove to me that, you know, what they were doing was legit and so on. They had agreements with grid and basically like agreements that they can. I think it was more for betting side of Counter-Strike where they're agreeing to provide data on the spot for betting sites.
Yeah, because that's what Grid does in particular, is like the data. They're like kind of like Bayer's Esports basically for ESL.
Yeah, so for me, that was enough. You know, like, cool, no problem. The first red flag that was raised was like, okay, we're going to pay you all in crypto. And at the time, bearing in mind this is like 2021, crypto still, or 2022 maybe. Crypto is still, no, it was like 2021. Crypto is still like a bit of a weird one.
Let's continue.
Right?
Crypto,
So basically what happened then, after the tournament was done, 15 days, 20 days go by, I usually send out a message, say, yep, just checking all is good, you know, I've got bills to pay at the end of the month, blah, 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 just checking you got my invoice, because I hadn't heard back.
So you've done the soft reach out, as I discussed earlier?
Just done the soft thing, no response. Radio silence. 30 days go by, check my bank, not had anything, right? Or check my crypto account, haven't had anything. Give it another like 3-4 days, message again. Hey guys, just checking you got my invoice. Radio silence. I then reach out to Mr. I don't know how to pronounce his name. Mr. Punico is a player who is like manager for Into the Breach.
Yep. I know who you talk about. Yep, Punico. Yep, he used to be coach for Fate ages ago. That's how I know him.
Yeah, exactly. I said like, yo, you been paid or anything? Because I've not heard anything from the guy. He said, nope, we've not been paid. I hit up Seized. Everyone knows who Seized is, or should know who Seized is. Because, you know, I had lines of contact with him previously because he played for Trident. He said, nope, not the first time either that something like this has happened. So many scam tournaments like this are being run. And again, I'm not, I'm going to use the word allegedly. And this is just me saying this. Okay, this is just me. This is not on Josh. So I'm just going to say allegedly.
Yeah, allegedly is fine.
I believe, and I have no factual evidence for this, so I'm not saying it's 100% certain, whatever. I'm using the allegedly term. I believe they were match-fixing games for their own pocket because if you go and look at the Wikipedia page for that tournament, there are 2 teams in that tournament that ran extremely far that no one knows who the hell they are. To this day, no one knows who they are. The players don't even have HLTV pages. They do not have Wikipedia pages.
Did you talk to the Wikipedia staff about it? Like, my name is and Martin.
Oh, come on. I'll touch on that.
Oh, sorry.
And I think what's also important is I quickly realized that the tournament, after speaking to Cease and other players, the tournament was not being run with any anti-cheat.
Oh, shit.
Yet you've got players like this who no one knows. Wikipedia has no knowledge of these players. HLTV, the only games that they have are literally these games. Yet they make it to a grand final against Into the Breach, which they lose. But basically, how it works with odds, if you're not a betting person or anything like that, when you play so well and you destroy everyone, you are going to be a favourite, right? And because they were not known at the time, Josh, they were underdogs for pretty much every game because no one knew who they were. It was a crap team on paper. But, I believe that they were hacking. I believe that they were aim hacking. I believe that they were wall hacking. They had everything they could have possibly had to win the game. They weren't bad players by any means. Maybe they weren't aim hacking. They had aim. But it's very easy to play when you have a radar hack, a wall hack, or whatever, and it's not being run on any anti-cheat.
Oh, definitely, exactly it. Like, that's exactly an issue. So
now alarm bells are ringing.
Yep, you've talked to C's.
Right, alarm bells are ringing. I know I'm not going to be paid at this point. I think it's pretty clear. They then basically radio silence in every single Twitter account. I hit up Wikipedia and say, hey guys, I've seen you've got this event. And bear in mind, this is Hydro Cup 3, by the way. And they paid out on 1 and 2.
Okay, so that's the worst part.
Basically, what they were doing is they were building rapport. They were getting a big prize pool, so then it can then be bet on, and then they basically do the rug pool. Right? That's my theory. So I hit up Wikipedia, say like, look guys, you've done 2 of these events before. I've been a part of the 3rd. You can see I'm talent. You've got me listed on there. They haven't paid anyone out. They're not paying any players. They're not paying any teams. They're not paying any talent. And they've gone off the grid. And they said, okay, thanks for letting us know, but there's nothing we can do about it. They kept it on. Whatever. Okay, no problem. At least I've tried doing my part. 4 or 5 months down the line, this story takes a bit of a twist. Because I'm still following the Twitter accounts, because I'm still following the Twitch accounts, I get notifications when the channels go live. And I seen a random channel go live on my Twitch. And it was something that the name was along the lines of Green Media Esports. Something like that.
This was called out.
It was Green something. It was Green, yes. It was Green something. And I click on it and I'm like, who the fuck are these guys? I have no clue who these are. I'm not following I've never heard of this channel because I really don't follow that many Twitch channels. And then it all added up. It all added up very quickly because you can go on like Social Blade and stuff to see when followers are like put on the channel. And it was Hydra's old Twitch account. What a coincidence, right? What a coincidence. It's another channel or the same channel running a Counter-Strike tournament. Only a Counter-Strike as well. And no one knows who they are. And they're taking over a channel of a tournament organizer that no one knows, who they are, right? So basically, I then get in touch with the guys running these green people, the green channel, I'll call it. And I hit them up, and the way I'm speaking to them, they wrote pretty much like for like as the head guy I spoke to at Hydra did, right? The similarities were uncanny. Okay, but I have no evidence really other than the Twitch channels and the way he spoke and typed to me. to really prove that it's the same person. I have no definite proof.
I think that was like
But-
caught out as well. Like,
Yeah,
talent.
and so I reached out to a load of guys. I reached out to so many talent and so on who jumped on board with it and kind of got together. But again, like, there's not much we can really do. We're not going to get paid. We can only just out it. And yeah, so basically that was it. They were also basically advertising giveaways on their Twitter accounts.
Yeah.
Which were never paid, by the way. No one ever won the giveaways. They were all fake giveaways.
Yeah.
But they built up like 5K, 6K, 7K followers from just doing them.
Yeah.
And again, I think they tried to do like a Hydra 2.0, where they tried to build rapport.
Yeah.
Try and show a following.
So I do remember
So they
Freddie.
could go to betting companies.
I did remember Freddie talking about this as well, Grimy. I think it was either Grimy or Neokai that like talked about this in general.
So yeah, basically, you know, you can only go so far with outing stuff, but if people just want to get off the grid, like these guys did, they were super anonymous.
Yeah.
There's not much you can do, I'm afraid. And as a member of talent now, and it definitely costs me gigs as well, but at the same time, it's for my own protection and my own investment in time.
Yeah.
If someone hits me up with a proposal, do you want to cast our tournament, and I've never heard of them, I'd ask for 50% upfront and 50% within 30 days of the tournament ending. And they can either say yes or no.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, that's the amount I'm willing to risk, my time.
Yeah.
If they say no, no problem. It's not going to...
I was actually going to ask, how do you do to mitigate that? And yeah, you've answered it very well there. Do you help other talent out to make sure they don't fall down through the same pitfalls? To just make sure, hey guys, like, you know, these guys don't pay. Watch out. Like, be careful.
Yeah, I think, the Casters Collective was a good one that we used a long time ago. I don't think it's that active anymore, unfortunately.
No, yeah,
it's kind of dead, but it definitely gets out, right? Because casters speak to each other, talent speaks to each other. If, for example, and I'm going to use Endpoint as an example, Endpoint have been fantastic with me. Pete, who is the owner of Endpoint and runs it, is absolutely fantastic. Anytime Endpoint have owed me money, they've paid me within a day. Realistically, they have 30 days to pay me. He'll just pay. Usually, if he's at his PC and you invoice him, he'll pay you there and then. They don't long it out with 30 days, right? They're very good for talent. However, let's just say, hypothetically,